You got to look at the challenges and the shit you got to deal with in that open space versus that tent. The pests, huge problem in the fact that if your room's not fully sealed, I'd say pests, air control, quality control in the sense of your CO2, even humidity and temperature, and the light leaks. If it's not properly sealed, a lot of people would be like, oh, that's perfect. If you're a construction guy, you're a handyman for sure. But if you're some dumbass from Grand Rapids like myself, I wasn't that guy. So I just had a regular room that actually did have a lot of light leaks and had a lot of areas that pests could get into. And it was tough to be able to keep things in or out. And I'd run into situations where I'd get ladybugs to deal with mites early on, and they'd be all over my house. I'm like, how the hell did they get out? Like the same way the other things got in, that open space that somehow I didn't block off properly. So I think making sure everything's sealed up very good, literally sealing up the cracks and everything besides just putting up poly and getting all the white plastic on your wall, so to speak. These are things that can help avoid those pest issues and all that stuff. But then at the same time, if you're living in this home or if you're renting this home, that's an even worse situation. You may not be able to do construction to rebuild these things. You may have to settle with just a room that you're putting the plastic up in and you're hanging lights and all that. But it's just one of those things where if you can't fully seal it, the tent is better, in my opinion.
This reminds me a lot of a conversation we had in a past episode where we got real deep into like growing on the grow tent and kind of talked about it versus growing in a grow room. Yeah. Really good stuff there. I think one of the things this brings up, you talk about sealed rooms. When we talk about taking your grow to the next level here, using CO2 would definitely be on the list of things to do, is implement CO2 really during peak photosynthesis, right? When lights are on is when you want to be using CO2. And what numbers do you typically go after? Now, everybody kind of has their own opinion and a different experience on what ppm to aim for of CO2. Generally speaking, it's between 1,000 and 1,200. Some people go up to 1,400. I know it was a good study by Utah State University, Bruce Bugbee, 1,400 ppm of CO2 got a 30% increase in yield. So it definitely helps with yield, helps with growth, photosynthesis. If you're looking to take your grow to the next level, implementing CO2 in some fashion, could be the tanks. There are other methods of CO2. That's definitely going to help take your garden to the next level.
Well, and I think that's where, again, the room's sealed and it's tight and it's right. You have the meters in so you can make sure that you're not losing CO2 and your ambient CO2 level is, worthy that you need to be adding more into it. That's the only time I use CO2 was in the open space because it was so large of a space. When I'm in these little tents, I don't see as much of a need, but I do know people do it and they're happy with the results. But that's where the grow space, the open grow space advantage, man. I feel like your crop steering, your pushing of your plants, you're taking it to the next level happens in the open space more times than not. I feel you've got your defined grow zones, so to speak. You can create that big veg space or that massive flowering space, knowing that that's where you want to take things further. And when you're adding CO2 in, usually you've got more intensity in your lights. And with an open grow space, 9 times out of 10, not always, you got a taller ceiling. So you have the availability to, crank these lights as much as you want potentially, and maybe raise them a little higher. But then you're able to add that CO2 and the supplemental CO2 so your plants can handle it. So that's a big advantage.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely increase the lighting when it comes to CO2. Dial in that VPD as well, right? We know that the VPD really controls the stomata opening. So you have to make adjustments there because what you don't want to do is add in CO2 and then all of a sudden your VPD is off to where your stomata is closed and the plant really isn't getting that benefit. And then, increasing lighting, you mentioned, increasing the feeding as well, because the plant's going to be kind of intaking more nutrients, really. Those are all good call outs. And just to get a little bit deeper on the VPD thing, because that is a thing that can take you to the next level, right? Some people just go after temperature, temperature and humidity. They have individual, I like to do 70 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I like to run 70% or higher of relative humidity. Well, where does that show up on the VPD chart? In flower, you're way off. In flower, what's calling for 75 degrees Fahrenheit, that's looking for 40 to 50%. I got the VPD chart up right here. So if you're above that, if you're going into 70, you're in the red zone there. So something to keep in mind. Sure, old school way is kind of to monitor temperature and humidity separately, and a lot of people still do that and it could be successful, but we're talking about taking your grow to the next level. go to VPD, dial in VPD, because that's going to really help determine, get more accurate as far as growth, allow the plant to have the stomata opening and really intake all those elements there.
I think that's the plant hacks. That's where you can do some in the grow tents. And yes, people will argue you may get better results in grow tents, but I'm telling you, man, the open spaces is where I was able to pull those pound plants. I was able to get the crazy results because I can veg longer, I can work longer, and I could push it further than I can without the limitations of the height and the restrictions of the space that I have in these small areas.
Right. And remember, when you're chasing that VPD, consistency is key. You don't want big swings in humidity. You don't want big swings in temperatures. And if there's any misconception that grow rooms don't get hot or don't get as hot as a tent, that's completely a misconception. It can get even hotter in a room because you are insulated. Generally speaking, you have insulation in your walls. That air is not escaping at all, where in a tent, it might be escaping. So having a good AC or a heater within your space, humidifier, dehumidifiers, take your grow to the next level by having a consistent grow space where there's no swings one way or the other. You've just got things dialed in so that there's no surprises.
This FTS clip was brought to you by AC Infinity, leaders in garden innovation. Use discount code TheStash15 at checkout to save some money on your order.
From the Stash Podcast.